It was my job, and that of my crew, to fly beneath that ash, to stay above the mud flows, to dodge flying debris, rocks, and to get as close to that erupting volcano as we possibly could in what was aptly named the blast zone. We were told to keep an eye out for survivors and bodies, and we would find both. My work in television news amplified my admitted natural tendency to move to the edge of my comfort zone and push just a little bit beyond it. It becomes a necessity when you're assigned to do things like exploring active volcanoes, diving with large ocean predators, or even simply broadcasting from challenging situations or locations. Professional training, professional experience, and also focus not only helped extract me from that physical blast zone earlier that day, but it also helped me remove myself from that emotional blast zone that was going on in my mind. Stress is not an option when you do live television, and I suspect that's true for what many of you do as well. It's a given. The option is going to be, how do you respond to it? Shared experience becomes the foundation, the basis for authenticity that leads to receptivity and connection. It's only when you open to an audience that you can expect the audience to open to you, and that provides the basis for shared growth and receptivity. It is very useful in learning how to deal with these situations to have a metaphor, a mind model, not only for the challenges that you face, but also for the ways to respond to them. My favorite one is a radio. A quick story. My first paying job in broadcasting, and it wasn't paying much, was doing the news in a small FM radio station. The listeners were not amused. And guess who got to answer those calls? I did. There were the angry ones. What do you think you're doing to my station? There were those that were almost in tears. Why would you do this? And then there are the ones that I can best describe as being truly memorable. Young man, the last thing I want at 7 o'clock in the morning is for my husband to get his motor running. I'm sure she had a point. Stories close the gap between our head and our heart. They provide the shortest distance between what we are and what we'd like to become, between us and another person. To paraphrase the poet David White, the language of story is language against which all our self-erected defenses crumble. They provide the fertile ground for understanding, for connection, and for growth. Remember I mentioned to you that an engineer handed me a slip of paper? Well, by the end of the day, they handed me another slip of paper, and it had this number on it. 57, the number of men and women that perished in the volcanic eruption. We had a very heartfelt and healing discussion. Toward the end, he looked at me and he shook his head and he said, "You know, Jeff, part of me wishes I had never encouraged David's interest in geology." But he said I couldn't have done that. David used to say to me that, "Dad, each day for me is an adventure. Each day is an opportunity to learn something new, to use that knowledge to get better at something that I do, and to use that knowledge and that skill to help other people." Working nightly in television news brings you into people's homes and inevitably into their lives, into their families. I always viewed that as a great privilege, and I sought to repay that privilege by being a guest that entered those homes with a sense of caring, of warmth, and with carefully researched information that spoke to their values and their needs. I seek to do that with every audience I speak to.